So here we are, the day after April 20th, Hitler's birthday, and we're sending troops to Ukraine to support a bunch of Nazis who were put in power by Victoria Nuland with a bunch of money from George Soros to overthrow a democratically elected government and try and provoke a nuclear war with Russia. That is insane. And furthermore, what is the response of Obama and California Jerry Brown to the drought in California? Governor Jerry Brown says the state was better off when it only had 300,000 people in it. What are we going to do with the other 37 million? I don't know, turn them into compost, except they don't want compost because you might grow more food, and if you grow food, you could feed people. And according to Jerry Brown and Barack Obama, the world is overpopulated. People should drop dead so we can bail out Wall Street and we can bail out the euro. Now that is not the view of Lyndon LaRouche, and that is not the view of the BRICS nations. And what occurred last July in Fortaleza, Brazil, is that a group of nations came together to form a new paradigm. It's not just a bank. The president of China, Xi Jinping, keeps saying it's a win-win collaboration. That is not the stupid Henry Kissinger British geopolitics where one guy is up and one guy is down, and we have to have a so-called balance of power. That's not win-win. That's the Roman Empire. That's the British Empire. What the BRICS are doing, and China is leading the world now in scientific progress, is they are demonstrating a commitment to the future. Prime Minister Modi of India was here in New York. He said that the 65% of the population of India, which is under the age of 35, is the greatest resource that the nation of India has. The greatest resource is the young people of the world. How are young people treated in America and Western Europe? How are young people treated in Greece? Greece has over 60% unemployment among young people. And the European Central Bank is demanding that the nation of Greece pay back a 275 billion euro bailout that the people of Greece never received. That's genocide. That's why you need a Nazi policy, because you need Nazis to impose the kind of dictatorship that Wall Street is demanding. Look what's happening in California. Nestle is buying water for 2 cents a gallon. They're purchasing water for 2 cents a gallon in California, and they're turning around and selling it for $16 a gallon. And the poor people in Compton or Oakland, these people are just going to be left for dead. Their water is going to be cut off. What Jerry Brown wants to protect is water for fracking, water for growing marijuana plants, water, who knows, maybe he's lined up with Dick Cheney and he wants to make sure there's enough water for waterboarding. I don't know. What we should be doing is going nuclear. California, Jerry Brown's father was a much better person. Pat Brown worked with Kennedy, and during Kennedy's time there was a plan to build 6 nuclear power plants in California that would desalinate water. Isn't it ridiculous that they're saying that we're out of water and you have these gigantic oceans, that over 70% of the surface of the earth is covered with water, and they're telling us that we have a drought, that you should drop dead, that you should stop flushing the toilet and taking a shower and growing food because we don't have any water when 70% of the earth is covered with water? What we have is a drought of intelligence. We have a drought of creativity. Some nations, like Mexico, have done experiments on ionization because it turns out that the ocean evaporates huge amounts of water. and it's up in the atmosphere. There are rivers bigger than the Amazon, bigger than the Mississippi, in the atmosphere of the Earth. Since Obama cut NASA because he said we don't need fancy fusion energy, just put more air in your bicycle tires. So we're not funding NASA, we're not funding NOAA, and therefore we have rivers and rivers of good fresh water in the atmosphere, and we don't know how to get that water down on Earth where we need it. Now, Mexico did some experiments with ionization. You can get an electric charge into the atmosphere, which causes condensation and creates cloud formation. And they discovered that they could increase the amount of rain fourfold. What would that do for the state of California? California, which is right next to the Pacific Ocean. Couldn't we get some of that water that's raining over the ocean to rain over California? Well, Governor Jerry Brown doesn't think so. He thinks you should drop dead. You should have physician-assisted suicide and smoke marijuana. What we need is for the United States to join the BRICS. What we have is Obama, who should be thrown out of office, carrying out the legacy of the Bush administration in an alliance with the Saudis, the very royal family of Saudi Arabia that helped coordinate the 9/11 attacks on our nation. And Obama and NATO are placing troops and nuclear capability right up against the border of Russia. And while the rest of the world is celebrating the 70th anniversary of the defeat of Adolf Hitler, the United States is sending troops to arm the Nazis in Ukraine. What a disgusting display. Where are the celebrations in the United States of the defeat of fascism? Oh, I know, we're not celebrating the defeat of fascism because we have a bunch of fascist Republicans in the Congress and we have a fascist President Barack Obama. Therefore, we're celebrating Hitler's birthday instead by sending troops to Ukraine to support the Nazis. Now, we have a collaborator. Lyndon LaRouche and his wife have a collaborator in Ukraine. Her name is Natalia Vitrenko. She has been a very outspoken opponent of this Nazi policy. She warned about it actually a decade or so ago because of the economic policy. She said the policy of looting Eastern Europe after the Berlin Wall came down would lead to an upsurgence of Nazis. You have it in Greece with the Golden Dawn. You have it in Poland. You have these supremacist Nazi movements making a resurgence because of the policy of looting, just like Prescott Bush financed Adolf Hitler. You have a policy, you need a fascist dictatorship if you're going to extract the loot out of the population by starving them, by unemploying them, and by recruiting them into illicit activity like drug trafficking, prostitution, and terrorism. So what is called for, what happened with Natalia Vitrenko is she has very courageously spoken all over the world. She's a former member of the Ukrainian parliament. And she has spoken out against this Nazi takeover of her government, which was funded by George Soros, and who were put in place by Victoria Nuland. And Natalia Vitrenko is now under threat. We think her life is in danger. 9 prominent Ukrainian opposition figures who have opposed the Nazi takeover of their government and who think that Ukraine should be celebrating the defeat of Adolf Hitler like everyone else in the civilized world, have been killed in the last couple of weeks. We don't want Natalia Vitrenko to be killed. We don't want her slandered or imprisoned as one of her colleagues is in prison. If anything happens to Natalia Vitrenko, Victoria Nuland, Obama's representative to Europe, the one who said F the EU and was not even fired for that, we will hold Victoria Nuland personally responsible for anything that happens to Natalia Petrenko in Ukraine. It's time for the American people to find your courage, to find your patriotism, to remember Alexander Hamilton, who was, after all, a New Yorker, and remember what Alexander Hamilton did to unify the city of New York and the nation of the United States. Alexander Hamilton was the first Treasury Secretary of our nation. He said, "A national debt is a national blessing," at the point that we had to pay back the debt from the American Revolution. And Thomas Jefferson was making the argument that every state should just pay its own debt. And Alexander Hamilton knew that the British would find that a delightful way to break up the United States, get all the states divided against each other. You've heard the expression divide and conquer. So what Alexander Hamilton said is that we are going to consolidate the debt under the national government of the United States. And we're going to allow the American people to invest in that debt, and we are going to build roads and canals, and we're going to invest in the internal improvements of our nation. And because of Alexander Hamilton's commitment to that purpose, the United States became the republic that it is today. It became the most powerful, the most productive, the first nation to put a man on the moon, the nation of Abraham Lincoln, the nation of Franklin Roosevelt, the nation of John F. Kennedy, the nation of Martin Luther King, and the nation of Lyndon LaRouche. That is what Alexander Hamilton gave to the world in his fight to create the United States. Since the assassination of President Kennedy, we have had very few decent presidents. We've had Ronald Reagan, who went with LaRouche's proposal on the Strategic Defense Initiative, and you had Bill Clinton, who listened to LaRouche that we needed a new financial architecture, and the next thing you know, they were impeaching him. Other than that, we've had the Bush family, which is a total disaster of traitors, starting with Prescott Bush, who financed Adolf Hitler. We had Prescott Bush. We had H.W. Bush, who was nicknamed Rubbers for his aggressive commitment to depopulating places like China. Then you had W. Bush, who was a complete idiot, probably a crackhead, whose administration was run by Dick Cheney. Some of you may know Dick Cheney was a child of Satan. LaRouche wrote the book on that, and we have the DNA test to prove it. So we had the Bush administration, which was a disaster. Then you had Barack Obama. Now everyone thought Barack Obama was going to be different from George Bush because he looked different. He was a Democrat, not a Republican. But they didn't read the label. Obama is funded and supported by the exact same Wall Street traitors and criminals that supported the Bush family. So not surprisingly, Obama has had the exact same policies as the Bush administration. What are these policies? War, 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 drug trafficking, torture, killing people with drones, and bailing out Wall Street to the tune of $31 trillion or something like that. I've lost count. What Lyndon LaRouche and his wife Helga Zepp LaRouche are proposing is that the United States should join the BRICS. That is, instead of trying to provoke a war with Russia by demonizing President Vladimir Putin, who has done a very good job in keeping his calm and cool under an absolute aggressive provocation by NATO and the US. So instead of trying to provoke a war with Russia or provoke a war with China, the United States should actually join the BRICS. The United States should make an investment for about 1% of what we spent on bailing out these stupid criminal Wall Street banks, we could build nuclear power plants in California to desalinate water and green the deserts. We could create millions of jobs for our young people building the nation. And we could reach out to nations in Africa and South America in a partnership of building high-speed rail, nuclear power, desalination plants, and we could explore the universe. China is committed to mining the moon for helium-3. China is committed to an aggressive plan to develop fusion energy. The United States should have had fusion energy by the 1980s, but we cut the budget. And now President Obama says we don't need fancy fusion because we can insulate our windows. And furthermore, his science advisor, John Holdren, really thinks that there's about 6 billion too many people anyway. So if you're not among the select 1 billion, you should just drop dead, according to the Obama administration. Obama must be thrown out of office, and he must be replaced by a presidency which is committed to the principles of Alexander Hamilton. We must reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act, bankrupt Wall Street, jail the Wall Street criminals, jail probably the head of Deutsche Bank, the head of Citibank, all of these people who have been living off the blood of the poor people of the world. This week you had a hideous crisis with a ship carrying hundreds of refugees from Northern Africa and the Middle East, where at least 700 people drowned. What kind of world tolerates that? What kind of world says we will not let these poor people, these women and children and men, come into our country because we don't want to share? Why don't we have a policy that is, as President Xi Jinping is calling for, a win-win policy where we collaborate to develop the world as John Quincy Adams intended, as President Kennedy intended? That's the mission of the United States. And a United States committed to that mission could be a partner in the BRICS instead of behaving like a Frankenstein monster with a replica of Adolf Hitler in the White House and another one as governor of California, telling the people of California to drop dead because we can't figure out how to get water from the ocean, which is all up and down the coast, desalinated and into the state to grow food and take care of the cities that we need. Lyndon LaRouche proposes that the United States throw out Obama, create a new presidency, bankrupt the Wall Street criminals and put them in jail, and join the BRICS, and commit itself to a future of the next 150, 200 years where this planet could actually have 25 billion people on it or more, with a much higher standard of living than the people of New York City currently enjoy, where we are tax farmed to death with multi-million-dollar toll payments and transit payments and water fees and all kinds of insanity, which is simply going to bail out Wall Street banks and has nothing to do with increasing the productivity of our population. So join LaRouche, get the United States to join the BRICS, throw out Obama. We can put Obama, Jerry Brown, and Dick Cheney all in the same prison cell. We can throw the Republicans out of the Congress and get the United States back to the legacy of Alexander Hamilton.